Welcome to the Airflow Podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Thomas, and this is the place where Kingdom Heirs go to be informed and inspired. So sit back, relax, and flow with me. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a new episode of the Airflow Podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Thomas, and today's episode is going to be for the mature folks, the folks who are okay with holding themselves accountable, the folks who look at the world and look at themselves and try to figure out how can we make it better. I'm talking to the people who want change but also look at things from within. You know, they take an introspective view of their lives and not project it on other people. They're not victims. I'm talking to those folks today. And this episode it's going to be different because, you know, over the past couple of months, and I would say even the past couple of years, but the past couple of months, I was really just thinking about my life and thinking about things that I've experienced over the past couple of years. How we talk about getting into, how things have changed from COVID, my relationship with God, my relationship with my family, just relationships in general. I started looking within myself. And one of the reasons why I started this podcast was I wanted to create a positive space, a space for growth, a space for something different, something that was not status quo with I'm on here gossiping, I'm on here talking about folks, I'm on here, tearing people down. It's that wasn't, and that's not the purpose for this podcast. I want to inspire people. I want to enhance people. And so when you start talking about that, it just goes back to what we are supposed to be as Christians and being, you've heard it in the Bible, being the salt of the earth. We're the light. We're supposed to be the light in darkness. But we're supposed to be the salt of the world. We're supposed to enhance things. We're supposed to bring a flavor that is different than what everybody else is getting. We are supposed to be differentiators. We're supposed to be world changers. We're supposed to be something that's not expected. And I feel like when I look at myself, I start to think, have I lost my salt? I look at the church and I say, has the church lost its salt? Or saltiness, I should say. I look at the African American community. Have we lost our saltiness? I look at us as a human race and I think, have we lost our saltiness? And I have to say that there are still great people out there who are really trying to do everything in their power to change the world for the better through inspiring others in different manners of science and you can say science, religion, and sports, and medicine, and entertainment, and whatever fields of mountains that are out there, government, education, things like that. There are people who are really out there fighting the good fight. But then there are those who are trying to take on giants that they're not meant to take on of their own, and you're seeing people falling under that weight. And all of that is really a culmination, to me, and from my opinion, it's a culmination of where we are today and why we have so many people abandoning the church. We have so many people abandoning their role as a Christian. We have so many people abandoning their love or their abandoning the unity within the African American community and just overall as human beings. There's no morals. There's no ethics. There's it's almost like we are in a state of chaos in so many areas. We are in the jungle. It is a survival of the fittest mentality. We see it in the church. We see it across all the different communities, African American community. We see it amongst the human race. We see it amongst people who are believers, who serve the same God. But we have no saltiness to us. Because those who are not believers, those who don't have a relationship, are they looking at us, and I say us including me, and do they see anything different? And I say the human race, and it sounds funny, but when we look at animals, and you think to yourself, and I had this thought, I had this I don't say discussion, but I had this whole thought process a while back where I was like, I wonder if animals in the wild look at the human race today and think they're no different than us. I mean, think about that. You think about that within, I'm just going to take this country, the U.S. All of the deaths, the dishonor, the hatred, the violence, the racism, all the things that make up our country. And as great as, I'm not bashing America, but I'm saying what separates us from animals. What separates us from, and I say animals, I'm not talking about domesticated animals, but what separates us from an animal in the jungle? See, there's no difference. If there's no difference between us as humans and animals, that's a problem. Because we were created to take dominion. But how can we take dominion if we can't even govern ourselves the right way? If we can't even love and build and we're able to live a life where we have morals. It's not all, see, this is not necessarily all about religion. It's not all about whether you're a Christian or whether you're a Muslim or whether you're a Buddhist or whatever religion that you choose to associate with, or if you make the choice of not believing in a religion, even as an atheist. There's a basic thing that as people that differentiates us from animals, our ability to have compassion, our ability to show empathy, basic human principles, gone. As a human race, we've lost our saltiness. In the African American community, I am all about growth and empowerment. But I look within our community and I say to myself, do we love and respect each other? How can we demand change in our community if we don't even have compassion for each other inside the community? And I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole different discussion. But again, how can you get people to respect and honor us and treat us in a way that commands respect if we don't even show respect for each other? And to take it a step further, if we expand the boundaries, we talk about the United States of America. And the U.S. used to be one of the most respected and feared countries out there. And I say feared, but, I should say revered, but respected. We used to be. But now we have countries, people from the outside looking at us like, why do I want to go to the U.S.? Look at how they treat each other. Look at their government. You're trying to sell me democracy, but you guys can't even pass laws to pay your teachers, to protect your children, to build infrastructures for your roads, to make sure that cities in the great country of the United States of America, that they have good running water. Flint, Michigan still does not have clean water for its citizens. As great as this country is, we've lost our salt. Politically, again, when I talk about democracy, how can you preach democracy to the rest of the world who may not have it? And we don't even model what that looks like. We have tainted election processes. We have tainted officials. And again, I know everybody's not perfect, but we can't even sit together as different political parties and figure out what's the best course of action to get our country, to make sure our country is right. And I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Tea Party, whatever party there is, independent, whatever you want to claim, whatever party you want to come up with. The bottom line is, how do we get our people, our country back on track? How can we work together to do that? And then we expand those boundaries, because when you start talking about the followers of Christ, you start talking about Christians, and you ask yourself, how can we call ourselves Christians and we follow the teachings of Jesus Christ? God is our Savior. The Holy Spirit dwells within us. And we act no different than everybody else, than the rest of the world. We act no different than, and I say the rest of the world, those that are non-believers. Those that, we within the church, and I saw an interview the other day, and a gentleman was saying that, people within his own religion, the religion that he follows, mistreated him. But it was those that the religion shunned. I think it was some transgender people and people who are a totally different religion. They treated him better than his own people, his own community of worshipers. And that says a lot. That says a lot to me. It says a lot to just think about. And this person, they're not a Christian. I think they were Muslim, but they were just saying that, that people who are supposed to be from the same place of faith, they were being treated differently. And so I look within the Christian religion, and I look within and I hear this because, you talk to people. If you ever talk to people who have real church hurt, they always mention that, it was people within the church when they needed the church the most that they felt turned their back on them. When they made a mistake or when something took place in their life, it was the church who turned their nose up at them. But it was those that were outside of the church who didn't claim to be, holy rollers or Christians or whatever. They were the ones who helped get them back on their feet. Now, is that everybody's experience? No. But we got to start looking at that. Are we too salty? Or are we just not, there's no flavor at all in us? What are we doing? And looking at our relationships within our families. Are we building our families? Or are we just competing to try to be the best to be the best in everything that we do, no matter who it hurts? What difference are we making in our environment? And I'm talking to us as individuals. I'm speaking to myself, and I'm speaking to the individual you. what part or what environment are you in? What's your circle of influence? And within that circle, how can there be, or where is there a distinction? Is there a distinction? Because there should be, if we are, and I'm speaking as individuals, if we are truly spirit led and we are truly believers and followers of Christ, and our goal is to continue to seek him and to be like him, then we will be the salt no matter where we go. And when you're around other believers who are the same, then you don't lose your salt in those environments. You don't lose your saltiness. You don't have to go into those environments and lose all your salt, your saltiness. Those are environments that you go in to recharge yourself, to get your saltiness back and prepare you to go back out into the world and add your saltiness in those areas and those, whatever those arenas are that you were called to be in. And then you come back to your church, to to who you are bound, I say bound to, but who you are connected with, to recharge you again, to recharge that saltiness. And that's what the church is supposed to be there for that. The church is supposed to prepare us as Christians to individually go into the workplace, go into the world, and sprinkle our salt in there. And we come back to the church to be around like-minded people, to continue to increase that. The pastor is supposed to bring in a word that is going to enhance our saltiness. That is what it's supposed to be, but that's not where we're at today. See, we're so busy trying to bring the world into the church that we forget to make sure that we don't lose our saltiness and what our calling is supposed to be for when we got saved. So everybody's stuck on numbers. Everybody wants to be a mega church. Everybody wants to have tens of thousands of people as members and have the big TV shows. But just because they have all those things doesn't mean that they got the salt. I've seen small churches make huge impact, bigger impact than some of the mega churches that are around. I've seen where the church I attend, not a huge church in terms of membership, but make a big impact in the community that we serve. When we're focused and when we're walking in one accord with the spirit with God's spirit and truly knowing that we're being led by the Spirit to do the things that we're doing, and it keeps our salt where it needs to be, to where we're enhancing the flavor of the world around us. That is what we're supposed to do. But then we start throwing up these walls as a church. And the church is just becoming so salty that it's not even palatable to the world. So you've got two kind of interesting points here, and I hope people are following me on this. But you have situations where the church is so salty that people who are looking to seek that, they can't. It's not palatable for them because it's so salty. It doesn't make way to incorporate other people to get them to where they're called to be. So it's like this. It's not inclusive of bringing people in to allow them to be open to hear what God has to say, to receive the salt that they're supposed to have, so they can take that back out into the world and expand that salty flavor in the world. And then on the other side, you have where the church has been so, I'm going to say, watered down to the place where there is no salt. So from the outside looking in, I see all the issues and challenges and all the things that the church is experiencing internally. And I'm like, why do I want to go and be a part of that when I have to deal with this in my house? I have to deal with this in my place of business. I have to deal with this when I turn on the news. Why would I want to go into the house of God or this particular church or join this particular, religious organization if it's no difference than what I'm used to seeing on a daily basis? There's nothing that's drawing me in. There's nothing that says I want to be a part of that, because I'm dealing with this nonsense there. I'm coming here to seek answers, but instead I'm seeing more of the same. And so people are turned off. So the question is, how can we balance out the flavor? Because again, we're supposed to be open and inviting people and showing them in how we live our lives, so that they can see that you can enjoy yourself, you can have fun. See that, and people have this mindset where when you get too salty, you get too high and mighty and too religious, that you can't enjoy life. You can't have fun. You can't joke around. Everything has to be, I'm singing hymns, and that's not what God called us to do. He called us to enjoy ourselves. But keep certain things. We have to remember there are certain things that we have to keep sacred. There's certain rules that we have to abide by. But outside of that, if we're following those rules, we'll have the best lives possible. But we get so stuck up in our high and mighty viewpoints that, well, this particular sin is bad. And we're going to stand on the soapbox that, well, homosexuality and transgenders and all of that, that's terrible. That's like the worst sin ever. But we turn our nose up at the adulterers, or I say not turn them up, but we turn away from the adulterers. We turn away from, those that are fornicating and sleeping around. We turn away from those that might be doing drugs or alcoholics, and abusing drugs and alcohol. We turn away from those who are committing, sexual immoralities just across the board. People within the church sleeping around with each other. We accept those things, but we want to stand on this sin right here. We're gonna focus on this one thing, and the sin is a sin. There's no, this is worse than the other. I don't remember, and somebody who is a biblical scholar can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember seeing anything that ranked sins in the Bible. I don't remember there being a ranking on a sin. It's kind of like it's like when you go to a wing place, wing stop. I went there recently when I was in Florida, got some wings, and of course they got their sauces. I think Buffalo Wild Wings does the same thing, and they put their sauces in like a chart. It's a graph going from mildest to hottest. The Bible doesn't set sin up that way. And so when you have curious people who, there are those that are out there that are battling, with their sexuality, and they're trying to figure out, how that plays in with their relationship. And it's a true struggle. It's a struggle for some, and some people are okay with it. My thing with all of that is, where's the salt in the whole process? Where is our distinction? Where's our difference? Why are we choosing one thing over the other to hang our hat on, or to stake our claim as a church? Sin is wrong. But see, I go back to God hates the sin, but he loves the sinner. So there's an area of redemption that needs to be a part of that. But we don't talk about that. We focus on, again, there's a big fight about the transgender community or the LGBTQ plus, and again, I'm not being disrespectful because I believe that everybody deserves the chance to be redeemed. And if, again, it's not my place to judge off of what your relationship with Christ is, because I don't know. All I can do is say, I'm going to live my life the best way that I can according to God's word. And when I fall short, it is my responsibility to atone for my sins and make sure that my relationship with Christ is right first. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that that is what I'm supposed to do. See, I can't focus on what that community, this community over here does, or that community over there does. And I have things that I have to deal with personally. So I've got to focus on getting my joy right, because when I do that, then I become the light of the world. I become salty. And then people see that and they feel that it is a genuine thing, that I'm genuinely happy, that they see the manifestation of blessings that God provides me. And guess what, people? God provides blessing. Just because you are a devout Christian and follower of Christ doesn't mean that God doesn't have his hand on you even when you're in your sin. All of us, everybody who I know who is a born again believer, everybody that has devoted their life to Christ, everybody says they had a past. Every sinner has a past. Every one of us. It doesn't matter if you're an alcoholic, a drug abuser, domestic violence person. Everybody has had something. Sexual immoralities. Everybody has had something that they've done. Nobody walks this earth as a perfect person. I am a walking redemption. And I know it's easy to focus on one thing. It's easy to focus on one community. I want everybody to be healed and set free. And at the end of the day, your relationship with Christ is your relationship with Christ. But there should be a difference. We can't continue to sit here and say that we are followers of Christ and our lives not reflect that. That is a contradiction. And that's where I get to the place of your life should be a reflection of your beliefs. But we don't see that. And so that's why people aren't attracted to the church. That's why people, they feel certain ways. And I'm just going to talk about, because I know all pastors aren't like this, but they see pastors living in the big houses, driving the fancy cars and doing all these things that the world sees as successful. And then when they dig into more and more, you hear more and more about these preachers who, there are preachers out there who have been robbing the church, robbing God's people. And I'm going to say this to men and women of God who are leading churches, who are called to shepherd. At some point, God has to give you a word that is relevant for the time that we are in. And again, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a preacher. But that word for your people does not have to come with a dollar sign, a dollar amount attached to it. See, we can't sit here and say that we are called to lead people to Christ. We are called to enhance and build lives. but we're treating them the same way the world treats them. Everything is monetized. Now, I follow prophets, different prophets. I follow different preachers, and I use my ability. I use my gift of discernment as much as I can. I try to, at least. I try not to ignore certain things, and I get skeptical about certain people that I hear. And I get to the place where I've got to seek God. Like, is this a word? Is this truly a word from me? And anybody who's been around, preaching, been around the church, if there's a word that you heard that was for you or not. You don't have to guess. The preacher may not have mentioned you one time, your name one time, but you heard a word that has been right on time. But I caution the church into trying to monetize every little thing. And I want to put this out there. I am not talking about my man of God, because I believe without a shadow of a doubt that he has a heart for the people and his desires to see his people prosper in every way. I believe that. But I will say to others, be careful. Be careful that you are not truly hearing God. Be careful that you are living or preaching a word that is world-based and not word-based. Be careful that you are not focused on things that sound good, that play to people's emotions. See, in this day and age, people do need to feel good. People need to experience some love and laughter and things like that. But they also need the truth about God's word. And we have to be careful. We got to be careful now. There is a balance in all of this. There is a balance. Because this is not, and this is my personal opinion, the world that we live in, this is not the time that we hoop and holler a message where we don't really teach people anything to help their lives increase. But they walk out feeling good and they go back to the way things normally are. For all these prophets, and there are good prophets and there are some that are just out for the money. For all you prophets, God does not give you a word, like I said, and attach a seed value, a price to that word. I'm not saying that God will not give you a word that says, this is an amount that God gave me this amount. So everybody who sows their seed will see. But I know that can happen. But every word that God gives you should not command a seed, at least a monetary seed. Now, again, I am open to be corrected, but see, these are the things that people get challenged with in the church atmosphere. I go to church to get my life right, and I know it takes, again, I know the other side of church, that it does take money to run a ministry. It does take money. It takes money to keep. I saw a graphic. I think it was today. I saw a graphic today, and they said the average church in America brings in 300,000. The average church has about 200 members, and they bring in 300,000 a year. And the lady was breaking down basically everything that the church has to do, in terms of insurance and bills and everything else. And you've got janitors, you've got supplies, for the church and the church offices and everything. And then you have staff that you have to pay a salary to. You have the pastor that you pay a salary to. So when you think about that, when you think about those numbers, 300,000 people, I'm just going to do the math real quick, 300,000 people, if $300,000 on average of a church that's the size of 200 members. That's only $1,500. And basically that's what they're saying. Is that over a year, the average person, if they're, and that's not saying that that's what they're supposed to tithe, but they're getting about $1,500 per person. And that's what they collect in their tithes and offering. On average, is $300,000, and you spread that out over 200, an average of 200 members. Now, some do more, some do less. Everybody is not a tither. And I believe that, giving, as a believer, giving is a way of life. As a believer, you should be excited to be able to give, because God has blessed you with harvest that you can continue to sow and continue to reap and continue to build and enhance the kingdom. So I understand that part of your prosperity does involve money. But again, what are we showing the world that's different? Because there are drug dealers and other folks who are not of the church, who are out there blessing people with money. The devil can bless you. The devil can give you money. The devil can, people, on Thanksgiving, they in the hood with big box trucks full of turkeys and Thanksgiving stuff. So, again, it's a good deed, but when you start thinking about it, just because you were part of the church don't mean you're the only person that can, or only group that can bless folks. But what are you doing? Where's the integrity in everything? Where's the honesty with your parishioners? Where is that? Where's the saltiness? Where is the information? Or where is the true desire to build your people? And I'm not one of those folks that think that, a pastor can't have nice things and money and all that other stuff. But when that stuff becomes the focus of your message, then you're not doing anything different than rappers or entertainers or anybody else. And I've heard pastors and preachers, they talk about all of their things. They make sure that when they're live on TV, when they're on their social media platforms, they're showing the designer clothes. They're showing the designer, glasses. They've got the shoes. They've got the big houses, or they pulling up in the cars, and they're making sure people, this is what they got. Now, they put the disclaimer that God has blessed me with that. But it's all about the effects. Now, on the flip side, if you look at things, how many people will follow a pastor that doesn't reflect prosperity? How many people will follow that man of God? And now, if God tells you to follow, that's a different story. But think about that. How many people really follow a broke preacher, a man or woman of God? They don't have any prosperity in their lives. There's no sign of abundance. You probably wouldn't follow that because you're like, okay, if I'm truly living out God's word, I'm going to have abundance. Now, abundance doesn't mean money all the time. But if my relationships aren't blessed, my family isn't blessed, if people around me aren't growing and prospering, and that's in all aspects, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, physically, if I didn't say that already, financially, all of those things play into that. If I don't see that, then why am I listening to you? Is your word going to add flavor to my life? Is it going to enhance me? More importantly, is this where God wants me to be? And I can go on and on about this kind of stuff. And I feel like I needed to address these things in this episode, because we as a people of believers, and this is the Airflow podcast, so I am trying to continue to inspire heirs to be who they were created to be. And to be heirs, we have to be salty. We are supposed to infiltrate areas that are bland and enhance it. We are supposed to enhance in those areas that they are looking for that. Now, we can't force ourselves, our saltiness on others. Because ultimately it's up to God, right? Ultimately it is up to God. God is going to be the almighty redeemer. He is going to be the one who is going to bring the peace, the joy, the love, all that stuff. We are supposed to be reflections. We are supposed to show people we're supposed to show people, we're supposed to be the walking billboards of what being a follower is like. And when you're like that, then no matter what community you go into, people will feel the love. I should be able to go into a community of people. I should be able to walk into a prison and people gravitate to me because I am who I say I am. I hear them. I listen to what they're saying. I love on them. I tell them that no matter what you've done, no matter what mistakes you feel you made, that you are still loved and there's still an opportunity for you to change. But see, how many people get out of prison and they go to a church and they're looking for help and they get people are scared and they're afraid and they're nervous and they turn their nose up. How many pastors are like, oh, we don't know about this person? How many people have you seen do that with or have that issue? It's like, man, I've done my time. I'm trying to get my life back on track. And, sometimes you just need a little help. But the church folks turn their nose up like, oh, they just got out of jail. We don't want to help them. And there used to be prison ministries out there. Churches had ministries that would go to the prisons. See, at some point in time, everybody wants to be loved. Now, there are people who are possessed by demons, and there are people who that the devil will use as puppets at different times. But everybody has the ability to be saved. The question is do they want to be saved? And if they do want to be saved, then then they would be, that means their heart is open and they're ready to receive. And that's where the salt comes in. That's where, our salt gets on them. And that's where, God is able to penetrate and make the change. And it's no matter what the situation is. I don't care who it is, where it is, and at no point in time, whether you agree with what other people do, because there's things that people don't agree with what I did. And I'm not sitting here perfect. I've had challenges. I've had issues with my family. I've had things that I've done that I'm not proud of. And I've had to own up to some things and say, you know what, I'm sorry. And pray that I didn't damage the relationship. See, I'm not one of those people. I know that everybody's not going to like me. And sometimes it's not my fault. And sometimes it is. And when it's not, I'm still going to show you the love. I've worked with people who told me they didn't like me and they didn't have a reason why they didn't like me. And I still treated them with respect. I still did what I had to do to make sure that I'm the team player that I am. And I'm going to take care of business. And I let God handle it. And I had people come up to me afterwards and said, you know what? I don't know why I had this issue with you, but you were actually a good guy. And I'm glad that, I was going through some things, but you were there and you stayed professional and this, that, and the other. I've had people come back to me. I had a boss that was like that. One of my old managers he was like that. He came to me afterwards and he swore up and down that I was just I had a level of peace about me where I didn't get frustrated because I used to walk around so frustrated. And I had to ask, God got on me about that. Now, I may have mentioned that before, but God, I was at work. I was mad. I was frowning. I was like frustrated about everything. And But here I am, I'm a child of God. I'm a follower of Christ. I had no salt about me. I was working in a call center, and there was no difference. People looked at me. They didn't see any difference. They didn't see anything because I was walking around like, at that time, I was walking around like, I was everybody else. I was mad. I was frustrated. But then God hit me and said, you know what? You're not showing the love. And he made me, he said, I want you to do something to make my manager's day. And now I couldn't stand this guy. In the flesh, I was like, I'm not doing it. But God, it was in the middle of the night. He woke me up. He said, you know what, do this. So I went, and he loved Mountain Dew Code Reds. And I bought him the biggest bottle the gas station had. And I sat it on his desk. I think I did tell the story here. I sat it on his desk. And I didn't wait there to be acknowledged. He wasn't in the office. I didn't say put a sticky note on it and say this is from Rickey. No, I didn't do that. I just put it there and I walked out. He wasn't in there. I went to my office. I went about my day, and there was a peace about me. Later on that day, we had a group meeting that we normally have, and he was like, hey, he was like, he had a different attitude about him. He was like, hey, he was like, somebody left a Mountain Dew on my desk. He was like, who did that? And so I raised my hand and said, I did it. He was like, man, I really appreciate that. I need those. I guess it was like his coffee, and he was just thanking me profusely. He was like, I was having a bad day. I left out early. I left my Code Reds at home, and he usually brings 2 of them to work. And so what I gave him was enough for 3 because it was a huge bottle. I guess he brings the smaller bottles. I don't know if it was a 2-liter. I can't remember what it was, but either way, and God showed me in that moment, he said, you didn't understand what this guy was going through, but your act of obedience towards him and the kindness you showed towards him is what showed him that there are people out there who care. And so I found out later after I left the place, because again, so I had this peace that came about me. I've been wanting to leave that job and all that other stuff. So I got peace that came about me at that point, and I was good the rest of the time. I was coming to work, positive attitude. And so I got a new job. And, God was just showing me like, see, I'm going to take care of you if you take care of my business. And so I got this new job. And, I put in my 2-week notice, and, I stayed positive and was working hard. I was staying late doing everything. And then the same manager that I showed the love to, he was telling other people like, yeah, Rickey, he's phoning it in. He's like giving up. He's not doing anything. And it was like, no, they spoke for me. It was like, no, Rickey has been staying late. He's making sure stuff is transitioned over properly. He cares. Cause I could have phoned it in. I could have been like, man, I'm leaving. I'm done. But I didn't do that. So long story short, I come back, I see him years later. This was like probably 5 or so years after that. And he was going through traumatic times then. He was talking on my name and he was going through something. I'm like, God, how did I, you asked me to do this, and it seemed like things were, he saw the light but then he goes back to bashing my name. And God was just like, you did right. You did good. Just stay in that vein. So I did, and I was just mad. I got frustrated. I'm like, this dude is really sitting here bashing me. I was like, I should call him and say, what's going on? Like, did you realize how much I stay late? But I didn't have to, because people spoke for me because they saw the work I was putting in. He just thought I was giving up because I was peaceful. I was happy. He was like, oh, he's phoning it in because he's too happy. No, I had joy in my life. And so when I saw him a few years after that, 5 or 6 years after that, I found out that his wife had passed away from cancer. And he was basically having to take care of his 2 young sons. And it hit me hard because I'm like, wow. See, I didn't know how much he was going through. And when I saw him, it was at one of my daughter's one of her AAU tournaments. And his stepdaughter, he had gotten remarried, and his stepdaughter played. And we talked for, I barely even watched the game because we were just talking like two friends and catching up. And he was just sharing with me. And he was like, man, he apologized. He was like, I thought that, you had did this. I said, no. And I told him I was frustrated, but I said, you know what? I realized, God showed me. And he was a believer. He was like, God just showed me, like, I need to stop being disobedient. I need to be at peace with the situation and understand that you are my manager, and there are certain levels of respect that I had to have for you. Even though I was frustrated with things and how things were being run, I still had to maintain a level of respect. And I think my pastor, Apostle Howard, had just preached a message about that, honoring those that are leaders over you, respecting them. Even if I didn't agree, it's not to take abuse. So that's where that peace came from. But because I chose to be obedient, I was able to have an impact on his life, even that short time. And he was in a different place. He, remarried. He seemed to be happy. He was healthier because he had some health struggles of his own. He was having ulcers. So, I never understood that. So his job was very stressful. If anybody has worked in the call center industry, that those can be stressful jobs. And he was the call center director. So he was the top person in that center. And it's very stats driven. It's numbers driven about everything. You got metrics and all that stuff. It was pretty intense. So I say that to say, you never know who's watching you. You never know the influence you have on people. You don't know that. You don't know the impact. You never know who's watching. Similar to what I tell my son, I tell him, and my daughter, when it comes to sports, I tell them all the time, every time you step out on that court, you never know who's watching you. Do you think that people are you go to these basketball games that you're playing in and you feel like I'm not one of the top recruits out there, if somebody's probably not paying attention to me, but then you go out there and you play your game and you do well and they notice you. Now you're starting to get viewed. People are starting to pay attention to you and you're picking up some traction. It's the same thing with this. The same thing about being the salt of the earth and shedding light. You have to ask yourself, what can I do? Even in my small community, in my household, what can I do at my place of business? Whether it's the job I work for or the company that I own or whatever you do. If you clean bathrooms, if you're a janitor, if you are a police officer, if you're a teacher, what is it that I can do to impact? Make a positive impact in people's lives? What can I do to enhance and change my environment, to make it better? What can I do to show that there is a difference? Think about that. Think about what you can bring to the table. And then go back and say, where am I recharging myself? Where am I getting my flavor enhanced at? Am I in a place, am I allowing myself to be at a place where I'm enhancing my flavor? If you're not a member of a church, what is my relationship with Christ? How much am I reading his word? Yeah, some churches shut down. Some churches went virtual when COVID happened, but the Bible didn't change. Our relationship with Christ, God didn't go on lockdown. He was still there. He is, and he's still here. We got to stay fit for the fight. We got to stay ready to go. We have to continue to push the envelope. We have to be willing to bring people in and allow them in their current state to experience our seasoning. and see us operate in reality. I've heard so many times people say they in their place of business, they go to work and they invite people to church. And a lot of times people don't want to go to church with them. I was like, cause why do I know I'm looking for a church, but I don't want to go to your church because the way you act at work, I'm judging the way you act at work. I don't want to be around that because something ain't right. You can't be running around praising God and speaking in tongues and all this other stuff, and then you at work cussing out folks. Again, I'm not saying you gotta be perfect. I'm not saying everybody's not a work in progress. But what salt are you bringing? What restraint do you have? Or if you have one of those moments, are you adult enough and grounded enough to say, I apologize. I'm sorry for the way I spoke. Let me fix this. Let me say this in a way so that you understand my heart, or if something I'm passionate about, or if I'm having it, I like, you know what, I'm going through something. Everybody has those human moments and it's okay. But we have become a society and a people who don't forgive. We don't. And we got to stop that. Forgiveness, that is a human trait. Now, it doesn't mean that you forget. But if somebody is true and genuine, at some point, we can take the apology. We don't have to forget what they did, and we don't have to be friends with everybody. This ain't about being friends with everybody. People are not going to like you just because you are salty. Oh, they think they're too good. They think they got it all. They look at them. They just happy. But I mean, people do that with my wife and I in our marriage. We get people who praise us and say, we love your marriage. And and I'm sure we got people who look at us like, oh, look at them. They all happy. It's fake. And we tell y'all, we trust me, we have things that we work out all the time. I'm going to put a shameless plug. The Marriage Transparency Diary podcast is coming. But we believe in marriage, y'all. We believe and we know we can work if you put the work in. But we got people that's going to talk about us regardless. They're going to talk about you. Oh, ain't nobody that happy. Ain't nobody got that much joy. Ain't nobody got this or that. And then when you have your moments of weakness, or when you down or you make a mistake, they want to jump on you then. Oh, see, you was talking all that stuff. Now look at you. If you was such a big Bible person and all this, then how did that happen? How did you do this, or how did you do that? Like life doesn't happen to all of us. But through it all, I'm still here. I'm still growing. Through it all, when I wanted to quit doing this podcast. Through it all, when I wanted to just give up on so many things. There was dark places in my life where I just wanted to stop. Like, I wasn't for sure if I wanted to be around, but through it all, it was because of my relationship with Christ that I come back to it. I come back to where I'm supposed to be. It all starts with Him. It's not about your pastor. It's not about your wife or your spouse, your husband. It's not about your kids. It's about your relationship with Him. That is the first thing. Because at the end of the day, even with family, when you're dealing with humans, they are imperfect. When you're dealing with Christians, they are imperfect people trying to be perfect in Him, because Christ, God, the Holy Spirit is perfect. But it is a process, and we're constantly having to be processed so that we can be the perfect product. And when it's all said and done, when our life is over, we should be what God created us to be. And in this process of growth and development, our saltiness is going to get on other people. They're going to see it, and they're going to be interested in it. Now, whether they act on it or not is another story, but if they're open to it, God will take care of that. You just keep being the light. You keep being the salt. You keep flavoring those bland situations in the world. And there are some people that just like bland. They just want to be rebellious. They just want to do what they do. And that's okay. You weren't called to save everybody, but you are called to save. So, again, I hope I pray that this episode will put you in a place to just think about you. Think about your individual selves. Think about where you are. Think about what you've done. Think about just in life in general. Are you praying for people? Are you praying for yourself? Are you praying for your family? See, some things don't have to be done outside of the house. Some things you can do right there in your own bedroom, living room, bathroom, wherever. Pray. Ask God for forgiveness. If there are relationships and things that you know that you got to make better, don't wait for the other person. Be the salt. You make it right. Hear God on it. Some of us have been sitting here for years thinking I need to call so-and-so and get that situation right. Or I miss so-and-so. I need to call them and talk to them and just let them know that I'm still here and I love them. And we delay it and we delay it. And that person is gone. They pass away. And you sit there like, man, I've been meaning to call them. How many times have we done that? And how many people know that phone call that you make to break the ice, to establish communication again, might be the thing that turns around somebody's life? I've heard too many times over this past couple of years with COVID that, with so many people dying and they didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to somebody or make it right. Let's be the salt, y'all. This ain't about no bland. I don't know about y'all. I don't like bland food. I don't like overly seasoned food. I like a good balance. A good balance will bring me back every time and keep me coming. But if you have a bland experience with food, think about restaurants. Think about a restaurant you go to. If you have an experience that's bland and the food doesn't taste any better, would you go there? Would you keep going there, I should say? Or if you go to a place and they over-season the food, would you go back? No. Now, you may go somewhere and you taste a few things and it's like, oh, it's not that bad. I'll try it again. And you might come back and try another dish on the menu, another thing on the menu, another thing. It's like, man, everything's pretty good. This one thing I didn't really care for, but everything else was good. I will come to this place. See, that's how people look at us as heirs. That's how people look at us. Yeah, I don't care something about there. It could be a personality trait that we have that people don't like, but they feel the love. They see our heart, and so they're like, I want to see more, or I want to find out more about why this guy's happy, or I see the blessing in his life. I want that. I've had family members come up to me and like, man, I see, your marriage is doing good. My wife and I, as you guys know, celebrated 20 years of marriage last month. Like, your marriage seems so good. Your family's this. We see you growing and building and, increasing in life and all this other stuff. And it's attractive, but it's not about the material. So they see a sense of when they're around us. I have people that say, I see y'all and y'all just got this peace about y'all. It ain't even about the material thing. They just talk about our marriage. Like, I feel peace. People come into our house. Every house we've been in, we've had people come in there. It's like, your house just seems so peaceful. It's just, we can relax here. We can enjoy ourselves. We can be ourselves. They don't feel turmoil. They don't feel hate. See, I've sat at tables. I've been mentored by. I manage currently. I've got people who have from all walks of life. I've got people who are believers and non-believers. I've got people who are, part of the LGBT community, and I've had conversations with them. I talk to everybody. Why? Because the main thing that people need to understand about being a follower of Christ is they need to experience love. And you can have love without being able to agree. And there's things that people don't agree with me on. There's things that I don't agree with other people on. At the end of the day, we can have a conversation and know where we stand, and I can still walk in love, and they can still know that they're going to get love from me. That is a different mindset. I've said it before, and I'm not trying to stick things on, because a lot of times, there are people who they feel like the church folks are hypocritical. And I'll say this, I say this, and I'm going to stand on this, and this is my belief. Do I agree with homosexuality, transgender? Do I believe with that? No, I don't believe with my faith, my spiritual being. I do not believe that it's right. I also don't believe that murder is right. I don't believe that abuse is right. I don't believe in adultery. I don't believe that's right. I know that fornication is wrong. Does it occur? Yes. But it needs to have the same level of scrutiny that everything else does. But through all of that, I still respect a person, whether I agree with them or not. I would sit there, I would talk to him, like I've said before. My manager, one of my first managers that I had, that I respected, that I really respected and listened to, he was a homosexual man. He passed away some years ago, but he was a great person. And he knew where I stood, but he was a great person, and he mentored me, and we had a great relationship. He understood where I came from, and I understood him, and I treated him like a man. I treated him professionally. I treated him, I didn't knock him. We had a great time joking. We joked with each other. We had boundaries. We understood, but that's the part where I talk about, not even from the religious side, just as human beings, we were able to grow a relationship with boundaries, understanding that at the end of the day, I care about you. I want you to be the best person you can be. And he wanted me to be the best person I can be. And it wasn't about our religious beliefs or sexual preferences, all that stuff. That didn't matter. He helped me understand how to manage personalities. He helped me understand about managing people, that everybody is almost like being a parent. You love your kids all the same, but different. You manage people the same, but different. You're not just managing a resource. You're managing a person. They have personalities. They have things that you have to account for. A good manager sees that. He helped me understand that. And so whether I agree with his lifestyle, I loved him as a mentor. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't allow his lifestyle to influence me. And, did I influence him? I don't know. But I was able to stand on my beliefs and continue to grow and be happy and joyful and do the things I needed to do to grow my career. And he lived his life, and he helped me. And, we, again, had a great relationship. And there's others. There's others that I've managed. Had conversations with folks, that I managed them. And they understood, I knew how to keep business and be professional in certain arenas, but I've had conversations, I had people, trying to bring stuff into work, trying to set these dividers up. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I want to see everybody win. I want to see everybody succeed. Separating business and professional things and all of that, but just ultimately, as a human, as a person, I want you to do the best that you can do. I'm not looking for you to fail. Now, if you're my enemy, then that's a different story. But see, a true believer doesn't approach everybody as an enemy until they show themselves as that, or God shows them that they're an enemy. So to, these different communities out there, to folks who think that I'm against them, I'm not against anybody who is about love, who's about creating positive experiences in this world. There are countries out there who work together even though they don't share some of the same principles, but they're willing to work together to make the world a better place, to work through trades. And, it's funny how when money is involved, people can be partners and they can have these relationships. Everything goes out the window like, oh, well, yeah, I don't like that person, but, they're paying me. This person over here, I know they're racist and they hate black people, but they see a business opportunity and I see a business opportunity. So I'm willing to deal with that for the sake of making money. And I'm saying that hypothetically, but there are things like that happen. So knowing those things, see, if you have a common interest, you deal with a lot of stuff. It happens in the streets all the time. And people see movies and TV shows where you got rival gangs and all these people sit down and have parlays and they figure out how they can, manage and live together and make money and all this other stuff. And, they organize and they willing to do everything possible to make that money. Why can't we do that to just live lives? If you don't like me, that's fine. Here's my boundaries. Here's your boundaries. We see each other. We can be cordial. We don't have to love each other. We don't have to go out to dinner and break bread and all that stuff. We don't have to. I respect you. So if I don't agree with something, I don't agree, but I don't have any ill will towards you. But if invoking somebody's wrath is a different thing than just people living lives that are different than what you expect and that you believe in. And if I have an opinion, yeah, I can share my opinion, but it's always going to be in love. There are people who don't like Christians for whatever their reason is. They don't. And, my job again is to live my life to the best of my ability and hopefully influence people, and they see me and they change their mindset. I know I've come in contact with people who have had a negative thought about African American men. And I know I've had a positive impact and influence on people like that. I've heard people tell me so that, or not directly, but they mention that. So again, you don't know who's watching. You don't know what people are going through. But as Kingdom Heirs, this is what we're called to do. So I'm ranting and I'm raving a little bit. I know I'm going on and off the script I had, but this is really coming from the heart. So I hope everybody hears that. I hope you hear my heart. Start today. What can you do to improve your environment, to improve you? Are you bringing salt? Are you breaking it? Are you enhancing what's around you? Or are you watering down everything? Are you shedding light and brightening up situations? Or are you just throwing more shade on it in darkness? Are you overly salting the situation? Are you repelling people away from you because you are doing too much? Are you shining so much light that nobody can stand in the light, that nobody else can be there? And there's a difference. So again, as always, I appreciate this platform. I appreciate those that listen. I ask you to share. If you got something from it, subscribe. I've got the links in the bio and in the episode information. So again, check us out. We're on all the streaming platforms for podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, all those places. The website is www.airflowpodcast.com. We're on Facebook. Look us up at facebook.com/Airflow Podcast. You can get the episodes there. But yeah, I'm going to continue to do this thing. It's going to get better. It's going to continue to grow. And, again, some of these conversations aren't going to be as lighthearted as this. It's not going to be lighthearted like this one is. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to invoke change. I'm trying to be better for myself. And I may just be talking to myself with a lot of this. And some people may listen to this and say, Ricky, what are you talking about? Maybe this episode was for me, but whatever it is, I'm glad I have this opportunity to get this off. I pray that God heard me. I pray that you heard my heart. And, I'm just asking God to increase me. I don't want to be watered down. I was created to have a salty flavor, as funny as that sounds. And I want to be the flavor enhancer that I was created to be. And that's what we are as heirs. So as always, as a kingdom heir, you were created to flow. And that's flowing everything that God has purposed and planned in your life. So until next time, flow on.